Oh, it's fun.
I'm so excited. My birthday with the McDougalls. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. So today we have on one of my very favorite families. When I knew that I was going to do a show on my birthday, by the way, today's my 61st birthday, I wanted Dr. McDougall to come on. So I invited him. He said, well, that's Heather's birthday. I'm like, well, then let's have Heather too. So she's my birthday twin, Heather McDougall. And also her parents are here, Dr. John and Mary McDougall. Now, whenever there's a doctor, you guys send in a bunch of questions, and these are very highly personal medical questions. So I suggest you just join the McDougall 12-day program online, and then Dr. McDougall would be happy to answer all of these questions. He does a live Zoom interaction every single day of the program with Mary, but these are very specific questions. And plus, the general ones like, are potatoes okay to eat? He's answered a million times in his book. So today we're doing more of a fireside chat to try to get to know them a little bit better. I've known the McDougalls for close to 15 years, and I really don't know very much about them. And there's things I want to know, like I'm dying to know, what do they read? What do they watch on Netflix? Things like that. You probably maybe don't know that Mary McDougall has her pilot's license. So we're here to get to know Heather McDougall, Dr. John McDougall, and Dr. Mary McDougall, and celebrate our birthdays. Please welcome them to the show. Hi, Heather. Happy birthday.
Hi. Thank you. Happy birthday to you too. It's great to be here.
We all sing happy birthday.
Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday here, Heather and AJ.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So I don't know where to start. We'll see if there's questions in the chat, but how did you celebrate your birthday growing up as a McDougall, Heather, or how did all the family celebrate?
Well, as my dad always says, we would celebrate our birthdays, like we should, with a birthday cake and a special meal. So, we got birthday cake once a year, and that was special. And my favorite cake was a German chocolate cake. Remember, Mom?
Yeah, I do.
I love that.
I remember
I haven't had that in so long.
Yeah.
But our birthdays were special, it's a special meal and a special cake, and I love that.
Well, it's been a long time since you've had that.
But AJ, we'll have 15 people together. That's our family, 15 people, and we order a little tiny cake about this big, and about half of it gets left over. It's just that we are so not used to having these kind of treats that they're a special thing. A little bit's enough, even for the kids. They don't have that kind of taste bud developed.
Yeah, they look at it and it looks really exciting. Oh, I had a birthday cake and the candle. They like the candles,
the ceremony's great.
And blowing out the candles and everything else. But when it comes time to eating the cake, it sometimes.
Well, JJ, I will tell you a little bit about Heather's birthday, as long as you tell me a little bit about your birthdays. Mary is a giver. Okay. And I have to tell you that the kids and the grandkids have been overly indulged. And they have, you mention it, grandma gets it. And birthdays are particularly great holidays for her, as well as Christmas. She just goes crazy at Christmas. So all the kids are totally spoiled, except for the fact that we tried to keep things real and relevant. And so I think they turned out to be pretty good.
Well, I'm getting
kids.
to be better, but
no,
it used to be when it was Heather's birthday, there would be a stack of presents that.
Still the same way with the grandkids.
Yeah, I still do.
Still the same way.
You remember that, don't you, Heather? It would be a huge stack of presents, and
that compensated for my lack of interest. I always say, we're a team when it comes to the nice things that she did. I got a little credit. All right, AJ, what about your birthdays?
Except for when it's a big year, I don't really do that much. Like tonight, I'm playing online Pictionary with friends. That's about it.
I was thinking about when you were a kid growing up.
When I was a kid, always special themed parties. But, I wasn't vegan until I was 17. So it was, real cake and real ice cream. Lots of games, though. I've always been a game player. So that's kind of what I always wanted to do on my birthday, and still today. Kind of fun, themed birthdays, if you will, Like I remember one birthday party, we had a backwards party, and everyone had to dress backwards, like put their shirts on backwards.
Fun.
And so we had dessert first. So I had an older sister, and she was great at making up like really fun things. So I just remember it was really, really fun.
Right, that's cool.
That's a neat idea.
Now, if you'd have told Mary about that 30, 40 years ago, she'd have been right in there.
I'm the backwards birthday too, yeah. And I like the idea of eating that, and the kids would have liked it too, having the dessert first.
Absolutely. Well, that's why I was fat for so long, because if I always thought life is uncertain, eat dessert first. Now I understand sequencing and calorie density, and I either like you don't eat dessert or it's a very rare occurrence. But I will say that you guys probably don't have my book, A Date with Dessert, but I do have a fairly compliant German chocolate cake. So I've got to get you guys that recipe.
Oh, yeah.
So that for the next time you're together, you can make it. So when you talk about your family, Dr. McDougall, I think people know Heather, but you have 2 other sons and 7 grandchildren, right?
We do. We have all very successful children too, AJ, and we're really proud of them. But as we look back, it took a lot of effort. We really were engaged with our kids all along the way. They did everything with us. We didn't take vacations separately. We did everything with the kids. And so I have a son who's a medical doctor and a professor at OHSU Medical School. And he's a very nice young man and really smart.
And all of his patients just love him.
Yeah, they just love him. And he incorporates a lot of what we do. He knows that this is the foundation to getting well. He's just kind of along the way lost a little bit of enthusiasm for compliance of his patients. He's found too many of them and has said, I can't do this, I won't do this. And I understand it's not easy to get people to make dietary changes. It's been a lifelong dedication for Mary and I, and now Heather, to get people to figure out ways we could get people to change. As I've mentioned before, the first book we ever wrote, which was a ring notebook, was called Making the Change, because I knew that the hard thing would get people from where they are now to where they need to be to get their health back. And it's always been the goal. It's always been the challenge. And for my son, Craig, he just kind of gave up a little bit. He still talks to his patients about diet, still eats well. My other son is.
Well, and he teaches he also teaches residents.
Oh yeah, he did.
And so he teaches them the principles of a healthy diet. So at least they know how to get people well. And, he doesn't follow up on them to see whether that's what they're doing in their practice, but he does teach that as part of his education that he has with them. So at least he does that.
It's just interesting. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say our other son he's got his PhD in chemistry, went to Stanford, did post-grad work, and now works in the oil industry, but not making oil. He makes additives for the oil companies. And I keep telling him, you're going to end up out of business. You better find another job, because we're going to make those people dry up. We're going to stop using that dirty fuel.
Well, and he keeps saying, well, we're trying to make better things.
Yeah.
They're
trying to show they have a conscience, but they don't.
I think
a profit margin.
It's interesting because so many people that I talk to that try to get on the healthy path, especially if they want to lose weight, find that the problem is their families aren't on board. It's more often the wife wants to do it and the husband isn't and the kid isn't. But it's so nice that your whole family never seemed to give you any resistance to this. Or when you talk to the Campbell family or the Esselstyn family, why do you think it's so? Is it because you guys are doctors, or because why don't other families?
I think, AJ, it's because of what I mentioned before. We put a lot of effort, just like Esselstyn and Campbell have done. I know their families, and they went on ski trips with them. They traveled with them. They spent all their efforts into making the family work. And I think that's the difference, is that orientation. And you're right, all of our family members eat the same way. I can't say they're all strict vegans, pretty close though. And we happen to have both of our sons married Asian women. They're actually half Asian. And so they came from families where rice eating was the common food. And it was really easy for them to adopt our kind of eating, because they'd always eaten that way and they never really liked the meat and the fish and so on. So they fit in really well with our family. So we have Hopahali daughter-in-laws, and I don't know what quarter Asian kids are, but we have several kids that are quarter Asian, which of course is a very interesting topic these days, with all the bigotry that goes out and all the discussion about Asian hate. And, I kind of sit back and I go, what?
Well, and the interesting thing is that our granddaughter looks Asian.
Yeah.
And our grandson doesn't look Asian at all.
And that's on Craig's side. And Patrick's side, I say both the boys don't look Asian much.
No,
they're
not
dark hair.
But that's all.
But no, I don't think anybody would.
But Chloe.
Chloe's
definitely you'd recognize her as
and they spend time in Japan, so they're bilingual. Anyway, I don't think it happens by accident, AJ, that people end up having a great family. I think it just takes a lot of work.
And
Dad, it was educating us, you know, our whole lives growing up. You know, you really taught us about food and the effects it had on our health. You didn't just say, don't eat dairy, don't eat meat. You explained to us why. And so, you know, you let us make our own decisions.
We weren't policemen.
Yeah, but we came to the correct point, and you know where we're at now, and I educate my boys the same way. You know, teach them about the food, teach them what certain foods do, and then let them make their own decisions, and hopefully they'll end up, you know, in the right space.
Well, but they sort of are already.
Huh.
They like
starch,
simple food and starch. They like simple foods. They don't like fancy stuff.
And to mention, they're the fastest kids in the school. Okay. And probably the three handsomest boys too.
You're a bit biased, Dad.
Well, it must make it easy then when the family gets together, because there's not dissension about food.
No,
but we know that at one point Heather had a slight little rebellion at one point, and I think it kind of
just a few.
Just a few.
Well, let me tell you about some of our other rebellions.
Oh no!
for us to be, because we didn't have any money when we started out, like most families, and for us to show our parents, both of our parents were alive then, and to show our children the world, what we started an adventure travel business. And of course, all of our kids went on all the trips. In fact, Heather did some of the pre-trips herself. And we would take them along with somewhere between 80 and 150 people to Costa Rica, to Panama, to Peru. We took them down the Amazon. And our family was always a big part of that. And of course, all the trips were vegan. And I have to say, I don't know whether it was our family or not, or any of our kids, but I know some of the passengers snuck down and ate with the crew. She didn't do that.
No, I didn't think she did.
Yeah, well,
most of my digressions were when I was younger, you know, going to McDonald's at the bus stop, and you know that. Yeah, I cheated with food. You know, that was my way to rebel.
I can still remember Craig having, you know, that burger place that was kind of near the high school where Jason
goes in Larkfield Center.
Yeah, and in Larkfield.
They're still there.
Yeah, are they?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Craig had this, or he and his friends had this bet that his friends tried to bet him that he could eat a hamburger instead of, because they serve veggie burgers there, and he would eat those. And he thought, well, I'll try it, you know. And that was his one. I mean, he didn't eat it. He thought it was terrible, you know, but he tried it because his friends bet him that he wouldn't. So
when you all lived in Santa Rosa, when it was a family birthday, whether it was Heather or one of the other kids or grandkids, did they just kind of give Mary their order for the day and that was the dinner?
Oh no, she was the driving force.
Well,
she planned the meals, the presents, everything, because this is her holiday along with Christmas. Is a birthday. And whenever Mary can get into this is why I think our relationship had worked so well over these 50 years. 50 years, huh? Yeah. is that you know, I'm not all that easy to get along with, as you can imagine, AJ. And Mary's always been the quieting influence in our relationship. But there are certain parts of our family situation that she's taken over with remarkable enthusiasm. And one is the care of the kids and the grandkids. She's a great grandma and was a great mom.
We always tell Mom what we wanted for our birthday dinner.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of cake we wanted, because the other boys, they like strawberry cake with strawberry frosting, right?
Yeah.
I was always chocolate, and I would like lasagna with garlic bread. And
I think that was always a favorite birthday.
Yeah.
Most of the lasagna, but it's the lasagna that's in my cookbooks. It's the same one that I always make. So it wasn't like it was a terrible thing that I made and I used all these forbidden foods. It was just a regular one, but it was richer than I would usually make.
Well, your lasagna, once at a conference, Dr. Lyle was asked if he was going to be on death row, what would his last meal be? And he said, your lasagna and your chocolate.
Yeah, he used to show up for that and also chocolate pudding night.
Yep. His favorite. So, you can answer this probably best, Heather and Mary. Dr. McDougall makes me very nervous. Like if he's going to be on the show, I don't sleep all night. I worry about everything that the tech could go wrong. Is he that way? Do other people feel that, like, or to him, is he just dad and grandpa and your family's not as intimidated by him?
Oh no, he's pretty intense.
Yeah, I don't see that in myself though, AJ. I just think of myself as a nice, kind, friendly person. I don't know why people react that way to me. But
they always do.
We're having a good time regardless. I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah, of course. It's dad, I know how to handle it. And, so is mom. And, it's just dad. I think, he and I are very similar in our personalities. So I think that's why we work so well together.
Yeah, I think you did get a lot of him.
Yeah.
So, like if somebody were to run into Dr. McDougall that knew him, from the plant-based world or other world, they would probably recognize him and maybe talk to him or maybe not. But like, do your kids think of him as a big deal like we do? Or is it just like, whatever, he's grandpa?
Oh, I think, he's just grandpa, but they also, admire him. Like sometimes they'll get a class project, who do you look up to? Who's your hero? It'll be grandpa because of everything he's doing to try to change the health of the planet and, save people's lives. So it's sort of a mix, he's just grandpa and he's amazing and he does everything with them, but he's also Dr. McDougall, and they know that part of him. I mean, they've spent, when they were growing up, the hours that they would spend at the advanced study weekends, just sitting and listening to him lecture. And so they get both of those worlds. They're pretty lucky.
Yeah.
AJ, we had, fortunately, Mary and I were in good enough health, and Heather was trusting enough to allow her to take the 3 boys around the world. And we would take them to places like the Neil Bernard's conference in Washington, D.C., for PCRM. And I remember there was an audience of over 500 people. And Mary and the 3 boys always, whatever lecture I gave, they would always sit in the front row. And this was a setup because I always started every lecture by saying, I want to introduce you to 4 of the most important people in my life. And I would have the little boys, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, stand up in front of a crowd of 500 people.
And wave.
And wave. And I figured, how else could they get experience with being in front of an audience? And, they did everything with us. So they've had a lot of ways of looking at the world, I'll tell you that.
Are they very protective of you? Because I know Dr. McDougall, one of the things I've heard you say is you would rather be hated than ignored.
Yeah,
and believe it or not everyone loves you as much as I do. And it always hurts my feelings when people say unkind things about you. Does it bother the family? Because I don't like it.
Well, I don't think they take it. I don't think they take it really personally. They know there's different views. I've told my boys to not go to someone's house and tell them how bad dairy products are. Like don't get into that conversation with them.
You don't have to talk about that.
They understand that people have different viewpoints, and they know Grandpa can be pretty controversial, and they've heard a lot of it just sitting in lecture, but they know the truth.
Great. Linda Middlesworth, who's also a big fan of all things McDougall, says, Heather, how old are your kids now?
So Jason is 17, Ben's 14, and Ryan is 12.
Wow.
So big. I know, Linda, you remember them when they were little.
Yeah.
Many people have grown up with those boys.
I can still remember when we first started our live-in program and you were pregnant with Jason and bringing him into some of the lectures in his little car seat thing that fit in the car seat and you could take it out so he didn't wake up.
Yeah.
He'd be in my backpack, and you know,
the night Heather gave birth, I'll never forget, to Jason. I was giving a lecture to about 200 people in Santa Rosa at one of our advanced study weekends, and I stood up and I said, I'm now a grandfather, and it changed my life more than anything else that I could imagine. So you look at things completely different.
That was one that I missed because I was there.
That's the only McDougall event I've ever missed. You and me, Mom.
Yeah.
You know, I want to clarify something, AJ, is that people may have a lot of opinions about me, but I never make personal enemies. You know, if you look around, you know, in fact, people get upset with me because they find me very difficult to argue with or to make me mad. So, you know, I just present the way things are, and I never, ever get personal. And this is the way my personality is. You know, other people run into confrontations, I solve them. You know.
Have you ever been wrong about anything, Dr. McDougall? I don't mean like, no.
Very funny. All the time. But I'm open to change. So I'd have to say, you know, which is a problem because my children have criticized me because I haven't changed. Like I remember Craig came to me after reading the Starch Solution. He says, Dad, he says, this is just like the McDougall plan that you wrote 30 years ago. I said, why did you write the same book over and over again? And I said, well, it's the truth. And he says, well, you know, you don't change like the other doctors do out there. I said, there's no reason to change. The truth is the truth. It always remains the truth. And I don't know, maybe some people would like me to change. Maybe they find me more valuable or open-minded or whatever, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to change because I know what the truth is. And when it comes to food and most medical care, I know what the truth is. And I'm going to tell you whether you like it or not.
You know, Mary, it seems like you have the perfect personality for being married to Dr. McDougall. Do you have any secrets?
Oh, I think so. I don't know if I have any secrets.
She's just the nicest person in the world.
I'm just
fine.
AJ,
patient.
let me tell you how you can relate. There's a guy named Charles who has a similar personality, who was fortunate enough to marry a very interesting person named AJ. You know, one of the things I told Mary when we first got married is you won't be always happy, but you're never going to be bored.
And that's been true.
And I've led her in a lot of directions, but as you mentioned, she took me on a wild ride about 20 years ago. She decided she wanted to fly an airplane. And I was raised with airplanes. My dad was a pilot. We had a couple airplanes when I was growing up. And she wanted to fly an airplane. And what she thought she was going to do was to get in the airplane and drive me up to Washington, Seattle, so I could do a lecture and then drive me home. Well, let me tell you, that resulted in 5 years of a tremendous amount of dedication to learning how to be pilots. Mary is an IFR rated and capable pilot. She flies a twin engine airplane all over the country. And I mean, all over the country. We've flown it to Mexico. We've flown it up to Canada, Detroit.
Oh, Heather went with us.
Yeah, Heather went with us, yeah. So, you know, as far as her leading me in different directions, she's guilty. You know, it cost me 5 years of my life, which I enjoyed somewhat. I like flying airplanes, so I'm a pilot. And
lots of money.
A lot of money, tremendous. I can't tell you how much 2 airplanes cost. But it was busy.
But remember that trip we went on to Yellowstone, the Grand Tetons, and Mount Rushmore, and Oshkosh, Wisconsin, to see the air show, and then Detroit to go see Grandma and Grandpa's 50th wedding anniversary, right?
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
They wouldn't let me land in Detroit Metro because they didn't think I could land
that.
in the big jet airliners. And so they flew me out into Canada for about a half an hour. And finally I said, are you going to land me or not? And they did. And it wasn't a very friendly experience. These big airports don't like to have small airplanes come in unless they know they're experienced. And I developed a reputation at San Francisco airport. So whenever I flew down there.
Oh yeah, they knew him, so they let him land. That was
where our food company was. It was about 2 city blocks from SFO. And so I'd fly down there 2 or 3 times a week to do business. And they knew when our airplane, 3695 Lima, came into the pattern that they could land me between 2 jumbo jets and I'd be just fine, so would they. But anyway.
Because he could land and get off right away.
That was a whole other part of our life, was flying airplanes. Thank goodness that's over with.
Well, before that though, we did sailboats.
Yeah.
We started out with sailboats. Heather, practically grew up on a sailboat.
We sailed all over the Hawaiian Islands. Heather probably remembers the time when many times we'd be sailing between the islands and there'd be big whales next to the boat.
Yeah. I remember clinging for dear life. Huge waves. Oh my God. But some of the best times of my life, sailing to Molokai and Lanai, and we didn't camping, we went sailing.
I was talking to Dad just the other day about, do you remember that harbor on Lanai where the pineapple bushes? Yes, the pineapple boats would dock.
I love that. But it'd be just us, we had that whole bay all to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that was so great.
We were not fair weather sailors. Whatever the weather was, we usually went. And it got pretty rough out there sometimes.
But I always knew when we were sailing, when we were flying, that I just had to look at you guys. And if you were calm, everything was okay. I would just look to you for reassurance and
it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay. Mom and Dad are scared. If they're not scared, we're gonna be okay.
You were a little worried one day when we flew home from our ski condo.
Tahoe, I remember that.
You'll never forget that day. It was probably not a good idea for me to fly that day, but I was.
Heather had to go home.
She had to go home.
Get home for some reason. Yeah. Too funny. Yeah, that's a very difficult airport to fly out of.
Yeah.
The Tahoe.
Well, it's so the elevation is so high, and
there's mountains everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a fun question for you, Heather, or actually all the McDougalls, because there's other grandchildren other than yours. Are any of them going into the family business?
Good question. They're all smart enough to, and they've been around this life. So who knows? That would be wonderful to keep it going.
But we don't know yet. None of our kids have none of the grandkids have really, and they're young anyway.
But I talked to Ryan and I talked to Ben and I asked about what their favorite subjects are, and they say science and math.
Science and math.
So
all of them.
There's a good chance they will end up in Jason too. There's a good chance they'll end up in some similar field. I mean, that's how I ended up in this field, is, not thinking that I was capable of becoming a doctor. I discovered I was, after being hospitalized for two weeks in Grace Hospital after a stroke. And I just kind of looked back at what kind of things do I like? And I liked science. And that quickly led me to medical school.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So it is a good possibility. I certainly have no objection to our kids becoming doctors, because being a doctor is the greatest thing in the world. It gives you the most opportunity to help the most people. And that's how you get rewards in life, AJ, just like you in your classes that you teach and so on, is helping other people. And so, being a physician, wow, what an opportunity. If you know a few tricks like eat potatoes.
And that's,
sometimes I think, you really pay me for this?
and no matter how much we say it or prove it, it's still the most controversial thing. When I think about all the really hot young girls that are successful YouTubers, they're all doing it starch solution. I don't see them doing it with other programs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You've got to get that starch.
It's becoming a little more popular than it was. And, you even see Mary's Mini written in Instagram and stuff like this. How are you doing this? Oh, well, I'm using Mary's Mini. Well, how did you hear about that?
Yeah, really.
A whole new generation. How long have you guys been married?
49 years.
49 years, yeah.
And AJ, they haven't always been easy, but I've never, ever for a moment regretted that decision. And I'm always thankful Mary said yes. Took her a long time to say yes, but she finally said yes.
It
didn't take me a long time to say yes to getting married. It took me a while to say yes to go out on a date.
Yeah, it took me at least 3 weeks to get a date, much less But then I won her over.
Yeah, you
My charming
dated
personality
for
won her
3
over.
months. They got married really quick.
Yeah, we got married in 3 months, or engaged in 3 months, then married 3 months later. And it was easy for me, AJ, because, and I told you this once before, I never told your crowd. My parents told me a couple of principles that carried me through to picking the right mate. One was, John, you had to be honest with yourself. And so I dated many, many young women in my life, and I never felt like I wanted to be married to any of them. I was honest with all of them, even though I had a great time. You know, they weren't the woman. And when I met Mary, she was. And the second thing they told me is that you have to marry a happy person because you're never going to make her happy. I took that personally initially, but the truth is you can't change people. And so if you marry a miserable person, that's what you get. And Mary, she was a happy person, and that, what can I say? And I've had a happy life, 49 great years.
Was it 49 years this year, or is this year you're going to celebrate your 50th?
50th this year.
It'll be 50 this year, but not until next January. Yeah, that's right. January.
So Mary, what attracted you to Dr. McDougall? Because I mean, I saw pictures of him. He was really, really handsome when he was young.
He was handsome, yeah.
But she used to listen in the operating room, and I was a little taken back by this. She could tell when I was coming down the hall. We worked together in surgery at a hospital. She was a surgical nurse, and I was a medical student. Because when I walk with a limp that causes my foot to strike the floor in a very characteristic way. So she could hear me coming down the hall.
Even when I was in surgery and all scrubbed and we were working on a patient, I could tell when John was coming down the hall to either join the surgery or to just peek in and see what we were doing, because I could hear his limp. And it's really funny because our youngest son, Craig, when he learned how to walk, his first steps were with a limp. Because how people walked.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
What did you guys do growing up as a family, Heather? Like, did you have, like, I don't know, movie nights or game nights, or just, what was it like?
Well, I don't know. We had lots of family time together. I mean, we would go out on, different day trips, and
well, you see, we lived on Hawaii and on Oahu. There wasn't a whole lot to do. You know, the island is kind of small. So what we did is local stuff.
We'd walk on the beach, and Dad was a big windsurfer back then. So we'd spend a lot of time on the beach watching him windsurf. And like we were talking about, sailing was a huge part of what we did, so we were always down at the yacht club and playing there and playing around the boat. And, we were a lot about the ocean. That was a lot of course, living on Hawaii, a lot of what our life centered around. And we lived right by the beach. So.
Do you still remember the sandbar in Kaneohe Bay?
Oh yeah, that we'd go and camp at.
The baby hammerhead sharks that we saw?
Oh yeah, and the little sea worms, and and the one night that the tide went out, and I woke up and the boat was on its side. I kept rolling on to Pat.
We had a lot of fun.
What was your wedding like?
Ours?
Oh, it was very small. We just had family there. It was, maybe 20 people,
yeah, probably
at the most. We didn't have a big wedding.
Wow. That's amazing. What do you guys do for fun? Like, in general, I always want to know, it seems like that you, Dr. McDougall, I'm guessing you watch more serious type things than fun things.
You mean television-wise? We watch comedies.
Okay. Well, like, what are you enjoying? Do you enjoy any shows on Netflix or Amazon? Like, what do you watch for TV? If you maybe do watch TV.
We watch the news. We watch way too much news, for sure.
Yeah.
And, but otherwise, we watch rather liberal commentaries. I could name the names, but it's not important. Those of you who follow our type of thinking know exactly who I'm talking about, who the liberal pundits are. We don't do too well with a conservative point of view, particularly one that's oriented towards white supremacy and bigotry. We do very terrible with that. So, you know, that's the way you like it. I don't care, you know.
But we like action movies sometimes, and sometimes we like comedies, and it kind of depends. Like when we used to have Heather's kids over at night, we watch a movie at night, and we'd pick, you know, whatever they wanted to watch.
Yeah, things their parents would never let them watch. But, you know, again, it has to do with the philosophy, and that is if you surround kids with a lot of the right things, and you expose them to some of the things that aren't so pleasant in life, that they can handle it. And, you know, what we wanted to have, and we ended up with very well-rounded, very solid. Look at Heather. Look how successful she is in life. Solid children. I have no reason to believe otherwise for our grandkids. I cannot think of one of my 7 grandkids that is destined to fail. You know, I imagine that at an early age, you can see that in a kid. I see nothing but success in these kids because of their parents. And of course, that's because of their parents.
Well, you know what they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I guess not.
Lots of your biggest fans are watching today, like Zena and Daryl. And Zena has a great question for you guys. Did did your 2 brothers find your significant others and then convert them to plant-based after dating? Or were they already plant-based when you guys found your partners?
I found mine and converted him. He was meat and potatoes, didn't really know anything about this lifestyle or what I did. And so, you know, it was just a gradual transition, just cooking for him and letting him know how good this food was and how good you feel when you eat this food. And, you know, no pressure, just no judgment. But clearly I wouldn't be able to be with someone that ate completely opposite than I did. So he was going to come along for the ride. But yeah, it was just, you know, leading by example was how I did it. And then, you know, Craig and Patrick, their wives were more along the plant-based line than I was. I mean, being Asian, a lot of their diet, rice, veggies, tofu. I mean, they were already eating really well. So I think the transition for them was a bit easier, but, you know, all of them are loving this lifestyle and eating this way along with
the
us.
Grandkids too.
Yeah, the grandkids.
All the kids it's just sort of, this is the way we eat, you know, and so it's really never come up.
Yeah, that is so cool.
As a big deal.
Hey, Dr. McDougall, here's a difficult question. Who's a better cook, Mary or Heather? And if they were to do an Iron Chef together, who would win?
Well, that's not fair. I like both of their styles of cooking. So, you know, that's one place I don't mind eating. In fact, none of our family do I mind eating with them because they all do a great job. And, you know, it's often hard when you have somebody else's style and flavor of cooking, but somehow or another, it just kind of fits, whether I go over to Craig and Mika's or Pat and Irene's or Heather and Brant's house. The food is always right.
Yeah, we like all of it.
And we eat so simple. I mean, you mentioned the lasagna. That's a big deal for a birthday. I mean, bean burritos is a typical birthday meal too. What are we having special? Nothing.
I know, same here.
We're having a cake with candles. That's it. No, it's a birthday.
Heather, are you eating anything special for your birthday? Because to me, people say, "What are you going to eat?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Whatever I eat on Monday. I don't know."
Oh, no, I'm kind of bad about just not making a big deal out of my birthdays. I do it for the boys, but I just, you know, I'll probably have something with chocolate in it, but I haven't planned it out. But yeah, I'll probably eat what I eat every other day.
Yeah, and you'll make it yourself.
Well, no. The boys are going to cook for me, and they're going to do dishes.
Oh,
so that's
really?
That's my treat. Yes. So whatever they make, I'll be happy.
Hey, Dr. McDougall, Kathleen, who's watching live, says, "Do you ever cook?"
Yeah, I do. I make breakfast every morning.
Yes,
oatmeal.
And I will. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'll occasionally cook. I could do it. If I had a good cookbook, I could do it. Yeah, sure I could. Yeah. But it would be stupid, simple stuff. It would be like bean burritos. I mean, how hard is it to cut up an avocado? You know, what effort does it take to boil beans? But our kind of cooking is I don't.
You could do sweet potatoes.
I can do sweet potatoes too.
And broccoli in the steamer.
Microwave baked potatoes, I can do those too.
Yeah. So here's a question.
Why should I learn how to cook? I've got the best cook in the world here.
That's true. You once did a video though a long time ago, I think, where I saw you make hash browns.
Oh, he does those. Yeah, he does know how to do hash browns. But you see, that kind of figures into the breakfast meal. You know, he makes oatmeal most mornings, and every once in a while we'll have hash browns.
Life used to be easier because Dr. McDougall's Right Foods had 6 different cereals, and they stopped making them this year. So I used to just go to the supermarket and buy oatmeal, Dr. McDougall's oatmeal.
Add some hot water and done.
Yeah. And now I have to take the scoop and scoop it into a pan. I mean, it's a lot of work.
Well, here's a really fun question from Julie, who's watching live. Do any of the McDougalls play any musical instruments, or do you have any other special talents that we might not know about?
Well, in school, I had to play the piano and the flute, but I don't play any anymore. Terrible.
Mary's a piano player.
I used to play the piano, but I haven't played in years. And then, you know, when our house burned down and I lost the piano, I had no desire to get another piano.
Mary was so good. She used to play Sunday morning for the church that we belonged to. So she's that good.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, Mom is so good that even if she hasn't played for years, she could just go right back to it. I mean, I could not do that. I don't remember any of it, but I remember.
Because I still remember how to read notes and things like that. So it would just take me a couple of weeks and I'd be playing again. But
do you guys like to do anything like crafts or puzzles or anything like that?
I got a puzzle right over here.
I'm doing a jigsaw puzzle over there, and it's maybe I probably only have a quarter of it left to do. So it's 550 pieces. It's about my limit. 1,000 pieces is just too much. I usually like to keep it to about 500 pieses.
I like puzzles too.
And you know, occasionally I come over and find a piece that goes to a special spot, and the grandkids really like.
Yeah,
so you can't get them too complex.
Yeah.
If you guys were offered a reality show, would you do it?
I don't know why. We have enough reality shows with you, AJ.
Yes, spot on.
So, you know, except for the fact that I have to say that, you know, based on what I see in other people's lives, in general, we're pretty happy people. And again, I think that starts from the, you know, finding a happy person to be with. Find somebody who loves life to be with, and pick that for your mate or your friend. Your you know, the people around you, surrounded very positive people. And Mary's always been that way. She's always been there to support me. And as I mentioned, when she went crazy about airplanes, I was there to support her.
Yeah.
I never wanted to fly an airplane. I flew them with my dad when I was a kid. So that was the last thing I
thought it was going to be really easy, you know, like getting in the car and just learn how to go up and come down again. And then I found out that there's all these rules, and there's highways in the sky with checkpoints, and you gotta stay, you know, you have to learn all this stuff. And I was just like, whoa. And I had to get involved. And so I remember at that time we belonged to an athletic club, and I had this big, huge textbook, and I would take it with me and I'd put it on the treadmill and I would read all about airplanes while I was walking on the treadmill.
So I have to say, AJ, compared to going to medical school, becoming an IFR instrument rated pilot was harder. It was the hardest thing that I ever did. And I think Mary could say the same thing, was to learn how to fly with the big boys. We were 10 days away from getting our license to fly a jet when we quit. And we quit, we quit because we kind of lost the need for an airplane. We used to fly the airplane all over the country to do lectures. You know, rather than taking commercial, we would just fly our own airplane, and that was more convenient. So it was a business tool. I can't say I ever was a Sunday flyer. I never jumped in my airplane and said, let's go for a ride and look at the clouds. It would be like, I got to get to Los Angeles, like, in 3 hours or 8 hours, whatever it took. And it was a lot of fun. It was a big part of our lives. And it was kind of interesting. Mary's mom and dad were very conservative people. And of course, we had a huge mortgage on our house, like most everybody does. And he would see us off spending our money on airplanes and other things, and he used to get so upset with us. But I look back and I say, well, what if I'd have stuck the money in the bank? Instead of going out and doing the things that I can look back at now and say, boy, this was really fun. So I'm glad I spent all the money we had. And we're still spending all the money we have. I'll tell you, don't expect, Heather, don't expect any inheritance, because you ain't getting any. Mom and I are spending it all.
That's hilarious. Dr. McDougall, your advanced study weekends, in my opinion, were really the gold standard of, everybody does conferences now,
Yeah.
but yours were really like, and I meant it when I said like the Academy Awards of the conferences. And I'm wondering, was there anyone that you just like the fish that got away that you like thinking back, God, I wish I could have had so-and-so on, but they weren't available or they said no. Was there anybody you really wanted to?
There are people. In fact, I plan on doing the advanced study weekends again. Heather and I've been talking about them. Mm-hmm. And with this day and age of doing so much over Zoom, telecommunication, I should be able to get anybody. I should be able to get Al Gore, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. You ever heard of him? I should be able to get him. I should be able to get the head of human health services. I should, in these new times. So I'd have to say that I would shoot for another category of fish. It's a bad analogy. Anyway, I would pick some of the movers and shakers in this world to interview, and I'd ask them tough questions, just like I ask all of our speakers. I always had the last word at the advanced study weekend. I don't know whether you were around enough to realize that, AJ, but
yeah, absolutely.
People would get up and they'd give their pitch, and I was always the last one to comment. And usually it was an experience that they learned from. Usually, occasionally I learned a few things in that encounter, but that was my time to give my orientation as to what they did that I thought was positive and where I thought there were some problems. And anyway, people kept coming. They kept coming back, AJ, like you. So I must not have been that unreasonable.
No,
always had a good time with the weekends.
So we'll do them again. They'll just be virtual now.
Well, Mary, why don't you do your celebrity chef weekend again? Because virtually
we have talked about that. Yeah, because it was so hard to do when we did it live, but virtually we could easily have a celebrity chef weekend, and because everybody cook it in their home and tape it, and
that would be, or it could still be done live. I can talk to you about that, because I'll do that. That would be amazing, because then you don't have to do all the parts that were hard.
Yeah.
Dr. McDougall, does anything scare you? Does anyone scare you?
I don't know. I have to think about it.
Well, do you look up to anyone the way we look up to you?
Well, yeah, I have my mentors. I've talked to you about them. Nathan Pritikin was one of my mentors. I got a lot of confidence and learned a lot from that man. I would have to think about it as some of the other people that there are two people who I could hardly wait to hear the next word out of their mouth. And they were Nathan Pritikin and Henry Heimlich. Okay, these were two men that I got to know well. Of course, they're both passed now. And I just sat there and could hardly wait to hear the next thing they had to say. But I can't think of too many other people that I felt that way about. Henry Heimlich of the Heimlich maneuver, an amazing guy. Yeah. And Nathan Pritikin was just another a pioneer to set an example for all pioneers.
We had Henry Heimlich. He spoke at one of our events.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He came to our house.
He's been to our house for dinner.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting Nathan Pritikin at his center when I was a little girl.
Oh yeah. We went to his center. Yeah.
Well, he came to, you remember him, the potluck we had for him at the yacht club?
No.
Oh, okay. Because we had, you know how we used to do those potlucks?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
People. Well, we had a big potluck and we figured the biggest place we could rent would be the yacht club area. And so we had a potluck for Nathan Pritikin at the yacht club.
And we had about 250 people that came to this dinner. And when Nathan Pritikin got done, he says, I can't believe how good the food is. And in his book called The Pritikin Promise, he reflects on a conversation that we had at the end of this evening at the yacht club. We walked to the car with Nathan and Irene, and Mary gave him 100 recipes and said, you can use these, you can have these, do whatever you want with them. And they became part of the Pritikin Promise book. And in the acknowledgement, he thanks John and Mary McDougall for their wonderful contribution or whatever. Wrong. He should have thanked Mary McDougall, period. Anyway, the Pritikin food tasted terrible before Mary got involved. No, I'm serious. People used to joke about the food.
They didn't know how to season at all. They just didn't do anything right. So
it was a difficult experience when it didn't have to be AJ, as you know, because the food is so good.
Why do you think, because I'm seeing questions in the chat that I'm not asking you about what other doctors say, and it doesn't even matter, but what the particular is, but why is it that people always want to pit one against the other, you think?
I don't know. Who are they trying to pit?
Well,
Mary and I, are you trying to, that would be a tough
No, but for example, like, see, listen, I just had Dr. Furman on the show 2 days ago, and I like him and I respect him. I don't eat nuts because I can't, but it's always like, well, ask him what, but Dr. Furman says we have to eat nuts. And I'm so tired of it being like potatoes against nuts and Furman against McDougall. If you can eat nuts and you're okay with your weight, eat nuts, but you don't have to eat nuts, in my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but this is what it always comes down to at the end of the day. And I just get so tired of it.
Well, you should stop orienting your attention towards this kind of nonsense. You know, I tell you, like I said, I don't have any personal, even with Furman, I don't have any personal confrontations. I don't do that. So, don't take it personal. Just, all right, you got your bias. I know you're wrong. Let's just move on.
Well, Heather, you told me, I think it was in an interview, that when you were getting into the nuts, your weight was up. And when you guys had birds, your weight was up.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. Those nuts. I mean, you can eat so many of them. You don't even think about it. And, just a handful a day and I'll be up 10 pounds. My pants won't fit.
Because they just pop into your mouth.
Yeah.
Roasted and salted, and, it'd be different if it was just raw nuts, but who buys those? Yeah, the dark chocolate covered almonds. Oh my gosh, So I just have to stay away from those.
They break down any semblance of sanity, those chocolate-covered almonds do. You just go insane.
Oh, man. Well, people keep asking what your favorite desserts are and which kind of chocolate you eat, Heather, when you eat chocolate. There's a special brand.
Oh, like dark chocolate chips. I'm pretty boring. I just like Whole Foods organic dark chocolate. I don't buy like candy bars. And then of course
you'd eat them, right?
Oh, of course. And then the dark chocolate almonds, I mean, those are amazing. You get those in the bulk food section, but I don't buy those either because I can't eat just one.
It's really good. That's why I always say, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Keep it out.
So Dr. McDougall, who's going to fill your shoes? Any of the up and comers that you think could do what you've been doing for 40, 50 years?
I'm sorry, I don't really know of anybody. I don't know anybody that would want to do it. There are a lot of people who do similar things that Neil Bernard, Dean Ornish, and Michael Clapper, and there are a few other people that are down similar roads. I think that the path that I've taken is rather unique, but anybody else that wants to take that path, I applaud you. It's not going to be easy. And you're not always going to be happy. You know how it is. You can tell the heroes by those with the arrows in their back. Isn't that what they say? Yeah, but you know, quite honestly, AJ, I really can't think of any serious confrontations I've had in the past that have left me changed, or, you know, or that I can really think about, or anybody that I dislike, or I don't know. I just don't have that orientation.
Do you guys listen to music, and who's your favorite either band or artist
right now?
Macy Gray.
Yeah, probably Macy Gray.
Oh, nice.
What about you?
I don't have a favorite. I just listen to different Spotify channels, like the chill channel, like chill hits, or, you know, lounge music. I just like, you know.
Yeah, we like that too.
Chill.
But, you know, for an artist, Macy Gray is probably both of our favorites. I really like Natalie Merchant. But
we like Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
Probably, you know, I don't know how you categorize our likes of music, but.
Well, notice none of them are current stars.
Yeah.
We don't pay them. They're all.
I couldn't tell you who's popular now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I get to listen to that in the car when I've got the boys in the car with me, you know.
Let me ask you, AJ, don't you think the music of our time was the best music?
I think the music before my time, I listened to 50s and 60s. That's all I listened to.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I like even before I was born. So I agree. I don't even get today's music.
You know, the new movies these days play songs from our time. You know,
Yeah.
It must be that we live the greatest time of all. What do you think?
Yep, absolutely.
The best of all times, the worst of all times. Absolutely.
Dr. McDougall, do you actually have an eidetic memory? Because when somebody asks you a question, you, without blinking an eye, you'll say, well, that was in my May 2017 newsletter.
Yeah. Well, there are certain things I remember. There are other things I don't really well.
I've asked him that before, and we were talking about that just the other night. I said, you know, I can't remember where a recipe is that I want to make. I couldn't remember which newsletter it was in or which book it was in. I have to go look for it, you know, or just wing it and start all over. But he can remember what year and what month and what the newsletter was even named, you know.
Well, I also have that kind of memory for research. There are certain research papers I can tell you where they were published, you know, who the author was, what the findings were, and so on. AJ, it comes down to, I think, the things you like are the things you remember. And I really, really like what I do. And I like to write, I like to research, you know, I like to put things together in a readable form. So it just kind of sticks. Whereas other things that I don't have that orientation toward, like you were talking about TV shows or movies or so on. I look to Mary and I said, did we ever see that? She goes, yeah, we watched that last month, you know.
Yeah, that does happen a lot.
You should go on Jeopardy, Dr. McDougall.
Oh,
no, I don't think my general knowledge is that good. If they did a Jeopardy program on medical, nutritional, scientific research, I'd go. But if they put it on any other trivia, I'd be out of the picture.
Yeah, yeah. So, Dr. McDougall, what do you really most want to be remembered for?
I don't know. I suppose telling the truth. You know, there's anything I'd like people to look back and say the McDougalls were, you know, we've heard many times people say we're ahead of our time. You know, that's just a cop-out. You know, what I hope someday people say is, well, Mary and John McDougall and AJ and Heather and other people who came to a similar understanding really changed the world because they told the truth. And unfortunately, you're being lied to, and the consequences are horrendous. You're losing your spouse, your parents, your children. It's not like a broken TV set that they're lying about. They're lying about your family, about you. So, you know, I would have to say, if they look back, they'd say, well, you know, Dr. McDougall, he was a renegade, and he, regardless of anything else, he told the truth.
That's true. That's true. Well, I appreciate your time so much. I always love having you guys on. I mean, I could keep going, but I'd rather just keep having you back. Maybe right. Where are the boys? How come the boys don't come on? I don't mean Heather's boys, but Patrick and Craig.
Well, they have a different orientation in life.
Yeah.
I think Heather tells the story.
Patrick is very shy. He would not want to be in front of a group. I mean, he's head of his chemistry division at the oil company, but and he can give his chemistry presentations and take care of all these chemists that are working under him. But to give an interview or a speech to just the general public, he wouldn't like to do that.
Is he handsome like Craig?
Oh yeah.
Yes, and very tall.
Very tall.
Both of them are very tall, very handsome, very well spoken. Just have a different orientation.
They're just nice people, and the other thing is they're going to be remembered for making a positive contribution in life. I think that's the yardstick by which to judge people. Is did they leave a positive contribution behind? I can say that about our 3 children, that they will leave a positive contribution. I already have behind, and I suppose that's what Mary and I have done too.
And that's the way I look at you too, AJ.
Aw,
you're making a positive contribution. You're look at all the people that you interview and get out there. So it's not like you're afraid to speak your mind and tell people what you think. You're making a positive contribution on millions of people.
well, thank you. It's everything I learned. I always credit, I call them the big 3, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Dr. McDougall, Dr. Lyle, Dr. Goldhammer. That's where I learned it all.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dr. Lyle, Dr. Goldhammer, you picked, again, a couple of very honest people who see things a little bit differently than other folks, but aren't afraid to tell the truth. A lot of people are trying to win a popularity contest. I don't know why, but.
Well, the thing is, when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said.
That's right.
That's true. I like that.
I like that. Yeah, that's good.
That's what somebody once told me. Well, thank you so much for making my birthday so very special.
Hey, happy birthday.
Well,
happy birthday to you.
And I know you guys have, I already, your birthday's coming up, Mary in April and Dr. McDougall in May. If you want to come on for them, I already have Dr. McDougall's present picked out. And I texted Mary what I think if he would like it. I don't know yet for Mary.
It's either a potato or a pile of poop. That's all you send. That's all you send me, AJ, are potatoes and piles of poop.
I've never sent you poop.
I got a coffee cup up there that has piles of poop on it.
Okay, well, all right. You have to understand that you were a speaker on the GI Health Summit. Every speaker got that mug. That was.
I didn't know that.
I forgot about that, but yes,
I thought I was special.
That was great. So this has just been wonderful. Again, thank you so much, Heather. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your birthday.
You too, AJ. Thank you.
My pleasure. And really, thanks. I don't know if you guys know this, if you see the chat, but I got more what's called super chat donations today than any other show. Because the McDougalls are on, and also because it's my birthday. There's so many people, I can't name them, but thank you so much. And thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow when my guests are the Sherzais, and they're going to be making recipes from their very new book. Thanks again, McDougall family. We love you.
Thank you, AJ.
Thank you, AJ.
Bye, everyone.
And let me
Happy
add one
birthday.
thing. Is the program for April is sold out, isn't it, Heather?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
if you'd like to spend 12 days with Heather and I and Mary, and you'd like to have your medical problems dealt with, and we'll deal with them. I mean, Dr. Lim is an excellent physician, and I weigh in once in a while. Probably the next program you can sign up for is May or June. They aren't filled up yet. Well, we'd love to see you. You want to spend, some time with us as we do with you. Join the 12-day program.
Yeah, it's great. And you get to have your parents every morning for breakfast. I mean, not
I know, I love it.
That's right.
It's a fun time for all of us, actually. Actually, I think Heather and I have gotten to know each other better over the last year than we have in many years.
Yeah,
since she was
absolutely.
a kid.
Yeah.
We spend many hours together online, Zooming. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Great. And I will end this broadcast of the McDougall program, of this episode today of Chef AJ Live, with what I said at the end of the advanced study weekend when I gave my talk, From Fat Vegan to Skinny Bitch. People, just eat a damn potato.
All right.
All right.